Formerly, Richard Nixon was a Quaker. He was a member of East Whittier Friends Church, and he had a Quaker heritage from his Milhous ancestors, represented for him by his mother. The other things, whether he's a pacifist or not, whether he lives by the testimonies or not, are really not important in his view of things, apparently. At least if you look at his memoir, in which he devotes 3 paragraphs out of what, a 670-page book, 3 paragraphs to his religion. That's all he needs to say. That's all he says. My name is Larry Ingle. I live in Chattanooga, and my meeting is Chattanooga Meeting. I wrote a biography of George Fox called First Among Friends, first scholarly biography of Fox, in '94. And soon after that, I began work on study of Nixon and his religion. And that produced a book published by the University of Missouri Press last June. It's entitled Nixon's First Cover-Up: The Religious Life of a Quaker President. Richard Nixon was the 37th President of the United States. He liked to keep a list of the first things he did. First time any president had ever done X, he would note that. I don't know that he noted that he was the first president ever to resign, but he was. If Nixon had been sitting here and you'd asked Nixon that question, he would say, I'm a Quaker because of the Quaker heritage of my mother, who was Hannah Milhous. She came to California, Southern California, from Indiana, and they had a long Quaker heritage going back to the 17th century. He didn't attend he never attended after his mother died in '67. He lived until 1994, so that's what? 87, 28 years or so? Third of his life? He didn't attend. Donald Trump simply announced a few weeks ago, 2 months ago or so, that he was a Presbyterian. I heard a report last weekend that probably is not true, although I don't know that. He still proclaims to be a Presbyterian. Well, Richard Nixon was much the same way. He didn't make a big thing of his religion. He was a Quaker, and that was it. They don't have to talk about it anymore. It seems to me that they're treating religion very much the same way, which is to say a vehicle for their political aspirations. I think that Richard Nixon saw that the popular appeal of a certain variety of Quakers would redound to his political advantage. He did this because those actions in support of the Underground Railroad, in resisting the war, and supporting slaves, that those positions would redound in 1959 and 1960 to his benefit. They would remind people that Quakers were people who opposed slavery, who not only opposed it, but aided slaves to escape. Quakers have no creed. You can't go anywhere and say, Quakers believe this. Therefore, Quakers have developed testimonies. The most basic of these testimonies is a testimony of integrity, because that testimony assumes that we will do and be what we say we are. After looking at Richard Nixon's life and studying as many memoirs, as many recollections as you can find that have been kept and produced, the one I found most valuable talked about Richard Nixon as setting up in the White House a us versus them category. That we're different from everybody else. We're doing what's right, everybody else is doing what's wrong. And that's the basis of the enemies list, a list of enemies of the administration. Now, for me, the testimony of integrity undercuts and destroys any enemy's list. Everyone is a human being to be respected. Quakers insist that there is something invisible in human beings. We call that of God in people. Nixon seldom saw that of God in everyone.